Hi, welcome back to Blue Mountain Bushcraft and Outdoors. Today we're going to do a Gauntlet review in Texas. Stay tuned. So I'm down in south central Texas on the Martindale Ranch, a few hours outside of San Antonio. I'm here for the week to do some bow hunting for wild pigs and turkeys. So this is a bow hunting trip, not a compound bow hunting trip. This is a traditional bow hunting trip. So this week I'm using my Bear custom Kodiak takedown recurve bow. Draws about 51 pounds for me at my draw length. It just so happened this trip also coincided with a Gauntlet review from Prepaired Mind 101. They were able to get me the LT Wright Jessmuk, as it's been nicknamed. Hopefully they come up with a better official name than that, but so far that's what it's being called. And it's kind of funny and I've gotten used to it, so it's not so bad. You can see reviews of this on Larry Roberts' channel, as well as the Mantis Outdoors channel, William Myers. They've both put this thing through its paces, doing all sorts of bushcraft skills, woodworking, fire making, carving, all that stuff. So I didn't see really any reason to duplicate what they've already done. Since I was coming down here to hunt pigs, it was my intention to bring this, use this as my only knife, and see how it does processing game. Now, just because I said these other guys have already gone over the woodworking capabilities of this knife, doesn't mean that I haven't played with it in that fashion. I certainly have, quite extensively since, well, before I even got to Texas. Been too busy hunting, haven't done a whole lot of woodworking here, but quite a bit at home. And I can tell you, this knife is as much of a pleasure to use when doing bushcrafting tasks as my skookum bush tool. And that's pretty much the highest praise I can give a knife. This thing is fantastic. Huh. Guess that didn't work so good. Let me find another baton. All right, let's try this again. In case you're wondering, this is cedar. It's fairly small, but like most things here in Texas, it's tough. This is a whole lot harder than the cedar I'm used to working with at home. This is live oak. This stuff's pretty small too. Look at those growth rings. This stuff is super dense, ridiculously dense. I'll try and baton that too. Let's see how she feathers. Of course, I already know the answer to that. Like the skookum bush tool, this has that continuous curve to the edge, which I love. Of course, this is a whole lot more pronounced on this than on the skookum, but it works extremely well. All right, I've got a somewhat twisted piece of live oak here. Let's see how it splits that down. This stuff is ridiculously tough. It's like iron. Huh. I gotta tell you, I was a little concerned. You look at the amount of twist in there and the way this blade was torquing. I know I didn't really go over specs. This is 1/8 inch 01 tool steel. So it's pretty tough. But this kind of twists in wood puts a lot of stress on a blade. Quite frankly, I was a little concerned that it might deflect the blade, but it didn't. It's perfectly straight. 1/8 inch. Super tough. I'm pretty impressed with that. That's 1/8 inch 01 tool steel. Not a super thick knife. I bent a 1095 knife from a very well-known knife making company on a much lesser piece of wood than this, and that was 3/16. So this little knife is a fantastic heat treat. Very impressive. Whew. This is feathering live oak better than it feathered the cedar. Easier. Okay, that's enough. It is 3:30. I'm going to cruise around a little bit, shoot a few more cactus, and get back in the blind. See if I can't kill us a hog tonight. See you in a bit. Alright, listen, one last thing I forgot to do. If I don't do this, I might get kicked out of the bushcraft community. To see how this thing's going to strike a ferro rod. I've got one of the hemlock ferro rods here. Got a little Padauk backer, some magnesium as a backup. This is just live oak and there's not a lot of it. Let's see how it does. Really should have more. I'm being lazy. Tinder keeps flying apart because there's not enough of it. There we go. Took a shortcut, still got it done. This thing scrapes a ferro rod like a champion. Alright, I don't need a fire. I don't need to start this wrench on fire. Okay, last bushcrafty thing for now. See ya. All right, so this was the last night of the hunt, and had a bunch of them come in. Should all be on tape, and took a relatively small one, but the small ones I'm told are the best eating. So there we go. Now it's time to get to work. I'm gonna hang this bugger up, clean her out, and see how she does processing game. Stand by. Alright guys, you're going to have to pardon the change of location. I shot my pig in the last night of the hunt, and the next day was pretty much taken up in getting ready to come home. What are my thoughts of the LT Wright Jessmuk? As a wood processing tool, like I said earlier, this is pretty much on par with my Skookum Bush tool, which, if any of you are familiar with that knife, it is, at least in my opinion, probably one of the ultimate bushcrafting knives that are out there. This thing will hold its own against that, and that's, at least for me, that's saying a lot. This continuous curved edge, the excellent heat treat, good edge geometry, it all combines to make this, I guess you would say, greater than the sum of its parts. It looks funny, guys. Of that, there is no doubt. It is a strange looking blade, but my God, does it work. On wood, it is fantastic. Now, Chris said when he designed this knife, he designed it primarily for woodworking. However, his main design cues were from an Ulu and from a Jessmuk, both of which are very heavily invested in food and game processing. So while Chris may have primarily thought of this as a woodworking tool, this has a lot of design elements which lend itself to game processing. And you know, that's where this review came in. So The other guys and the guys to come will touch, I'm sure, more on the woodworking. I've done a little bit of it, and I've given you my impressions. It does great with wood. As a game processing knife, I gotta tell you, it also excels. Again, the blade geometry, that continuous curved edge, the good heat treat and the good steel all combine to make a very effective tool. The point, which as you can see is pretty stout, is also fine enough that it pierces hide very easily. The blade's broad enough that it allows you to choke up on the blade and get your whole hand up here. You can get a finger at the tip for getting under the hide when you're doing your initial gutting, so that you're not piercing bowels or anything else that you don't want to pierce. It really lends itself well to that. For those type of tasks, when you're choked up, the handle can be a little on the heavy side. That's a pretty thick handle. There's a lot of meat to it, which is great when you're holding on to it. But if you're up here, I think for an extended period of time, it could be a little cumbersome. Just a little, not much. For those purposes, if I was doing a full deer instead of the small pig that I did, I would definitely have a lanyard here. I'd run the lanyard large enough so that I could loop it across my forearm, so that now I'm not holding the whole weight of this handle with my hand. The weight of the handle will be suspended off the paracord, off of my arm, and will pretty much negate that issue. And like I said, it's a very small issue. I like that the tip is in line with the center line of the handle. It just makes it very easy to control. You know exactly where that tip is at all times. And when you're working inside a game, that's fairly important. The one criticism that I have of this knife is the handle. The handle overall is excellent. For a grip like this, even like this, it's fantastic. When you start getting into different alternative grips, when you're holding it like this, if you're doing a reverse cut or a push cut chest pull, or when you're up here holding the knife like this doing skinning, this section here is too thick. This section, in my opinion, needs to be tapered down, and better yet, given a small bit of taper and thumb scallops, like LT Wright does on some of his other knives. I think if those design modifications are incorporated into this handle will be darn near perfect. All of the woodworking, all of the game processing I did with this, there was no hand fatigue whatsoever. I think it would just allow a little bit more control over the blade if the handle was sculpted so that you could fit a thumb in there for a variety of different tasks. That's my only criticism. It's 01 tool steel, like I've said before. The heat treat is excellent. Now I will say, well, I didn't sharpen this prior to going on the trip. I did touch it up on a diamond stone, a very fine diamond stone, just to put a little bit of toothiness back into the edge, because I feel that a toothy edge is going to hold up better in the long haul for tasks like I knew that I was going to be putting this to use for. And for all the woodwork, there was no issue. It's still quite sharp, but it's not shaving sharp. I have not resharpened this. I spoke to the ranch owner quite a bit about knives and what he uses, what he likes. He looked this knife over and he really liked it. Again, he thought that just for game processing purposes, he would like to see it a little shorter and see the stock thinner. But that's strictly from game processing perspective. That's not considering this as an all-around woods knife. You know, when we discussed it in that light, he thought it was fantastic. In his experience, he said when you're processing hogs like the one that I processed, the only way to retain any sort of a decent edge on your knife throughout the process is to thoroughly wash the hog first, which I did not do. And I'm here to tell you, skinning that animal was like skinning sandpaper off of it. There's so much stuff embedded in that hide that there is no way on earth this knife or any other was going to maintain a razor sharp edge. And it didn't. Couldn't expect it to. There's so much grit and crap in that hide that it wasn't going to happen. So, did that hamper it? It really didn't. I was able to skin the whole thing out, take the legs off, process some meat, and later on that night, cut up vegetables for dinner with no problem. This thing is still sharp enough to catch on your thumbnail. It's not going to shave hair, but it did extremely well. All right, final thoughts. As an all-around woods blade for doing camp chores, for processing game, for prepping food, I haven't used a better knife than this. And I'd say I like using this even more than I like using my Skookum bush tool, which I can't believe I just said that, but I did. This thing's fantastic. The geometry is excellent, the handle is excellent, and LT, if you're watching this, modify that pit just a little bit. I think you know what I'm talking about. And it'll be damn near perfect. I didn't touch on the jimping at all. For game processing, I didn't really notice it. For doing some woodwork, it's just about perfect. When you press your thumb into it, it's got just enough grip to grip your thumb, but it's not enough to be abrasive. So good job on the jimping, keep it there, I really like it. But it's excellent. It woodworks like a champ. It does a fantastic job with game processing, food prep. It's not too big, it's not too small. Excellent ergonomics. I don't know what else to say about it. I really, really, really like this knife. And when LT starts making them for the public, I'm going to sell something off and I'm going to buy one myself with my own darn money because it's that good. So take it for what it's worth, guys. This thing's excellent. Good job, LT Wright, and excellent job with the design, Chris Tanner from Prepared Mind 101. You guys did good on this. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this edition of Blue Mountain Bushcraft and Outdoors as much as I have. Frankly, as much fun as I've had this week, I seriously doubt it. But tried to give you a flavor of the trip that I had and the memories that I've made. It's been a great week. Really enjoyed it. All right, guys, make sure you check us out on Facebook. Link is in the description box down below, as well as on the very top of the page on my YouTube channel page. We got a great group of people there, growing a little bit every day. Come by, check it out. I think you'll have a good time. Great bunch of guys. All right, until next time, guys, shoot straight. See you later.